Hey everyone, welcome. This is Billy from Bookstore Romance Day. I want to thank you for coming to this final uh, virtual event for Saturday. We do have two more events tomorrow, so make sure you don't miss out on those. We've got Love is Queer at noon Eastern, and then Historicals Beyond the Regency at 2 o'clock Eastern tomorrow. Thank you to all of our authors for being here. Thank you to Gwenda for agreeing to moderate. And thank you to all of our sponsors who help to make sure that I can continue to provide these virtual events free of charge to everyone. With all of that, one more thing, make sure if you have questions, put them in the Q&A. You'll find at the bottom of your screen, not in the chat. They're going to get lost in the chat. This is being recorded. You will get an email after the event with your recording link. And I'm sure that there are other things that will come up. I will post links for buying everybody's books in the chat, so keep an eye on that. And now I think I'm done, and I'm going to turn it over to Gwenda.
Welcome, everybody. What a rock star panel this is. I think it's going to be a fun conversation. If you entered the chat for historical fantasy, you're in the right place. And if you didn't, you're still in the right place. I will let everyone introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about the book that's most recent or whatever they want to, really. I'm not going to police them too much. This is my cat, Stella. Ava, do you want to go first because you're at the top of my screen?
Oh, well. Hi, I'm Ava Leigh. I write, what do I write? I write historical. Still write historical, paranormal. And I've been doing this a very long time under different names. I originally was Zoe Archer, so you may know me from my Blades of the Rose series way back when. And most recently, I wrote a pirate historical fantasy called The Sea Witch, and the sequel will be coming out in March. And then, and available right now is yes, it's called Seduced by the Werewolf Highwaymen, and it's just as bonkers as you might think that premise would suggest. And it's about werewolf highwaymen, and it's also a why choose. So I just want to let everybody know ahead of time if you are not wink into wolves with why choose, but I think you will be because it's a lot of fun and it's got strong Robin Hood vibes and all of my eat the rich things that I enjoy. So anyway, thank you for having us and having me. I'm really looking forward to this chat.
Okay, and I'm just gonna continue. Then none of you will know because I assume we're in different order on everyone's
Yeah.
screen. So, Stephanie, do you want to go next?
Sure. I'm Stephanie Burgis. I write historical fantasy rom-coms, and most recently I've got I'm afraid this is backwards on the screen, but it's called Enchanting the Fey Queen. And it is book number 2 in my Queens of Villainy trilogy. Book number 1, I do not have the American version here, so you can just get a sneak peek at the British version instead. And book 3 is coming out in the spring. So I love writing rom-coms starring incredibly powerful, magical women and the men or women, depending, who become smitten with them.
Next, Natania.
Hey, I'm Natania Barron, a fantasy author, fashion historian, medievalist. So history and writing history and reading history has always been a huge part of what I do. I've written from medieval through Regency through Victorian. My most recent book is this one called The Game of Hearts, which is the third book in my Love and Netherford series. And the elevator pitch for that is Bridgerton, but with witches, werewolves, and vampires, and everyone can fall in love with anyone. So it's a queer normative world. This last particular book is a male-male love story, enemies to friends to enemies to lovers, lots of longing and drama. And the main character is a perfumer. And if you know me, I also love the history of perfume. So I was able to weave in a lot of that into the story as well.
I'm obsessed with your perfume obsession.
I have a
Next,
bottle of Shalimar right there. So
I mean,
my
I wish I
emergency
was
perfume.
there. Next, Megan Frampton.
Hi. Yeah, I'm Megan Frampton. I prior to this, I was writing historicals set in the Victorian period, and this is my first romantasy. It's called Demons and Diplomacy. It's the first book in the Ministry of Supernatural Affairs. I guess my elevator pitch is that in this world, Queen Victoria is a vampire and Prince Albert is a dampier. And not that I know how to say that, but just pretend I said it the right way. And my heroine is human, and she is tasked with navigating this new world where all the supernatural species are out and about and recognized, and, you know, anyway. And then she meets the devil's son, a demon who's incredibly hot. Yeah, I know. And so,
Hey,
yes, it's
listen.
very.
I'm not going to judge.
I know.
We
Not
are
your
here
average
for
white
hot
guy.
demons.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And it comes out in 2 weeks. It comes out on the 25th. So there it is.
I love the
And
little horns that they put on the
I
font
know,
on the
aren't they
cover.
cute?
It's so cute.
And it takes place during leading up to the Great Exhibition, because I'm obsessed with the Great Exhibition since North and South. And so this is the Crystal Palace, and then
Nice.
whatever. Yeah, so that's that. And then the next book comes out. I don't know when. I turned it in. I haven't heard from my editor, so of course I'm panicking that she hates it. But that's beside the point. So that comes out next year sometime. Whatever.
That's great. And okay, next we'll do CL Polk.
Oh, I gotta put down my emotional support knitting. Hi, I'm CL Polk. I write fantasy. A lot of the fantasies have romances in them. A lot of the fantasies resemble history. This is my first book. It's called Witchmark. It kind of feels like Edwardian England. And they solve a mystery, and the mysterious angel man is hot. Okay, this is the Feywild Job. This is my latest book. I'm sorry, it's not historical. It's Dungeons and Dragons. This one, I would basically say, what if you fell out with your best friend and literal partner in crime so bad it takes an entire fairy realm to convince you to go into couples therapy? This book, I got to tell you about this book. This is, even though I knew the end, I need to tell you about this book because right now on Libro FM, it is on super duper duper sale. And I've also earned out on the audio on this book, so all the royalties go straight into my pocket. Also, Marlowe, the demon in this book, her signature perfume is Shalimar.
That's right.
And I have a bottle of kind of emotional support perfume that I actually got from Natania in a little box.
Aww.
This is Guerlain Eau de Col. I don't wear this. I sniff this because this is the scent of a particular character that I'm working on, because this kind of smells like that unspeakably cute boy from the goth bar that you talk to, but you're too shy to tell him that you are like ready to climb him like a tree. It smells just like this.
That just made my whole
leather
mug.
jacket, a little bit of smoking, like some mysterious stuff. Somebody who walked by who's wearing frankincense. It's very gets me right into the headspace.
I'm not going to allow myself to make this a perfume panel, but I also have scents for all my characters in the book that I did copy edits on today before this.
We might need to talk
We
after
all need to
this.
start doing this.
Yes.
Wait.
But
Can we do a panel in the future called He Smells Like Something I Couldn't Recognize in Man, where we talk about perfume in our books?
Yes!
Please?
Absolutely.
Yes.
In.
Back for next year.
Yes, because that book will be out then, and she makes a scent for the hero.
Yes.
Anyway, is Leanna frozen when it's time?
Please, because
Okay.
I have
Ghost interference.
I'm here. Hi. Do you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yes.
We can kind of hear you.
Do you hear me?
Yes.
You can't hear us, can you?
Hello.
Oh no.
I hear you.
Oh no. We hear you.
I know. It's every time. Do you see me?
I think maybe you're lagged by a few
Hello.
seconds.
Yeah, the video's frozen.
I'm here. I'm
You
here.
want to, if she pops off,
Okay.
can she come back in, Billy? Will it screw things
Hi,
up?
everybody. Can you hear me?
Okay. Why don't
Okay,
Leanna,
should
why don't you
I
try logging
introduce
off and
myself?
log back on, and I'll
Uh,
talk about how fabulous you are.
is it?
Yay.
I've tried from,
Are you on your phone or a computer? Maybe try your phone. I've had to do that.
okay,
Well, Leanna Renee Hieber is an
okay,
expert on ghosts,
we'll do
and
that.
she talked about them, and now they're mad at her. That is
Oh no.
clearly what has happened. Um, all right, I'm going to throw out a question, and when Leanna is like resolved, then we'll let her talk about her book. Okay. Because she has so many, I'm not sure exactly which one to talk about.
Mm.
So I guess if we started on this with a couple of your answers, if you could talk a little bit about what made you fall in love with the idea of writing something set in a certain historical period, or made you interested in that historical period in the first place. And anybody can jump in and go first.
Yeah, I've written in several historical periods. When I first started out, I was writing these sort of secret history fantasies where it would be set in a time period that looked on the surface just like ours, and in fact could be our real history, but it was like the secret history, what was actually going on behind it. And I had a couple of my first two adult novels that were published were both that kind. One of them was set in Esterhazy in Hungary, and one of them was set in Vienna. And it was really fun to combine. For me, that had been like, I've always been a history geek, but that had actually been my PhD topic. So, those ones were easy, fascinations to work off. And since then, I've worked through a whole bunch of different historical periods, from Regency to medieval and Victorian and all. And I'm interested in almost all of them, to be honest. And that's part of what drives me, is I always want to do something a bit different. So I have revisited the Regency several times, but I always like taking breaks in between. And so, with Enchanting with Fay Queen and the Queens of Villainy series, that one it's a secondary world, but it was very much built on my ideas of, what if it had been our world, but it had gone very differently. And, all the gods in their version of the Roman Empire had been real. And how would things spin out? And so you get to sort of a mid 19th century, and some things are still true. And I was actually very careful about all sorts of geeky little details, like correct fountain pens and so forth. But other things are, of course, wildly different. And that's a really fun thing to play with, is, just getting to have this world where you get to take all the stuff that's already set up for you, but then play with it and make it your own. And also, frankly, since I moved from Leeds, where I lived when I researched my first two books, which had a gorgeous university library, down to a very tiny town in Wales, it is much, much easier if it's a slightly alternate history, instead of trying to make everything exactly accurate with just the magic being a secret behind it.
Yeah. When I was working on, like, the Sea Witch is an alternate golden age of piracy in the Caribbean, which is like the late 17th, early 18th century. And it's a very complex and complicated space. And I did a lot of research on that. But at the same time, because in this alternate world, magic is known, like there are witches and there are mages, and witches are literally persecuted, and mages are get to go to universities and get appointments on ships and in courts and things like that. So I got to kind of, like, I was trying to adhere to the historical as best as I possibly can, but it's also taking sort of poetic license in order to accommodate the magic and the storytelling, because it was like, the storytelling had always been, like, in addition to the history, the storytelling and the characters have always taken, they're a very significant component of that. So it was like, well, but in this world, X, Y, and Z. So it's not necessarily a historical tome, but it has that slight little tweak so that they can make allowances, and there isn't too much retcon. You're like, oh, no, 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 I meant this instead. You know what I mean? So I liked that kind of utilizing a historical milieu because, like you, Stephanie, I'm a history nerd. Historical romances were my first love back in high school, and I got like, degrees in English and like 17th and like 16th, 17th, and 18th century literature. So that was always where I wanted to go, but I loved expanding that world with the paranormal component, especially because if I imagine that a lot of us have a very progressive, ideology, and sometimes we need to add this other component so that we can sort of have allowances for that ideology within the setting.
I'll
We're
jump
coming
in.
back to
Oh,
that.
sorry.
We're definitely going to come back to that point in a
It's all
minute. Yeah,
about the
but Megan,
patriarchy.
go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Boo.
Boo. I am wearing my fuck the patriarchy ring that I got from Topple and Burn. For me, I started out writing Regency just because that's what I'd grown up reading. And Barbara Carlin, shout out. And then actually, I just like the gowns. I mean, just to be perfectly honest, I don't like the gowns so much in the Victorian era that I'm writing in now. So I usually have my characters usually make disparaging comments about how big the sleeves are. And like everybody else, I just love history. I love knowing how people lived. I just want to know that. And so um, with this book, because it was the first one where I had elements that weren't based in theoretical history, it was really fun to play with, like the other two people said. Yes, leg of mutton forever. Thank you. Yes. Is bleh. So being able to play with it, but also anchoring it with like the Great Exhibition and the relationship between Victoria and Albert and blah blah blah. That was just fun. I mean, it's nothing more than I like that period a lot. It's really cool.
Yeah, I think very similarly, fashion was a massive gateway. My mom sat me down to watch the Gone with the Wind when I was like 6,
Mm.
having no concept of anything other than, oh my God, these dresses, these patterns, these colors, not accurate exactly to the period, not the color scheme that one might actually expect at that time, but very Hollywoodized, of course, for the time that it was made in. But and even things like The Wizard of Oz, right? Like there's just the costuming and time and feeling like, gosh, we just don't dress the way people used to. What was it like to live back then? And starting to ask those questions. But I also just, I obviously got my degree in medieval English, and it's kind of very similar to you, Megan. I've always wanted to know, what are people like? And I think it's Mary Beard that says if you were to go back in time, you'd find that people are exactly like us and nothing like us at all. And that's
Yes.
kind of that tension that I love, is that there's so much absolutely familiar. We talk about cat paws and plaster and knocking ink over on manuscripts and all that stuff. But then there's also just like, how do you survive? I'm an avid genealogist, and I found someone in my family who had 19 children and they all died before the age of 4. And it's just like, how, how, how,
Oh,
how do you survive? And she did. I mean, but like you think about medicine in that time, I barely got through two births myself. And, yeah, so I think there's just something, and it's very much the little things. I love museums so much, and my favorite things are not necessarily the big fancy things, but it's the notions, it's the chatelaines, it's the little,
mhm.
it's the thumbnail, the the little scissors and the mending kits and the things that are used and worn and touched. And I think fabric is so cool because it's so ephemeral, and it's so literally unraveling. Like we can't keep these clothings healthy. It's just
Mm.
falling apart faster than we can preserve things. And when you go to the Met, or I went to the V&A a couple of years ago and got to see those Egyptian orange socks, and it was just like, these are from the year 300, and they look like somebody's recent project. Um, that kind of stuff just makes me incredibly happy in my brain.
Mhm.
Terrible about Leon not being able to get in. This is like the time that Billy threw me a launch party on one of these, and I couldn't get in because we had too many people. To go back to Ava's point about politics and patriarchy and other issues, Um, what do you guys think? One of the appeals to me of historical fantasy is, in some ways, it's easier to write about politics than it can be when you're writing contemporary fiction, without it feeling as didactic. Do you guys find that to be true? And is that something that you do intentionally in your books?
Yeah, we're all like,
I
yes.
do.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
No, please, Megan, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So this is very much like an anti-MAGA thing. I mean, it's about like, oh, there's new types of people in the world and we have to tolerate them. Okay. And so it's pretty obvious what I'm doing. And I didn't really realize what I was doing until probably halfway through the book, which is dumb, but kind of my process. And so there's interstitial parts in this where the heroine writes a guide to supernatural creatures, and it really could be applied to now. And it's pretty strongly that. Like, just don't be an asshole is basically the premise of it. Don't be an intolerant asshole. Yeah, it's so much easier to do. And for me, always in my books, one of my core stories is choice and giving the heroine a choice. She always has to know everything that is possible, and then she gets to make her choice. And if she isn't presented with all the facts, then it's not a valid situation for her. So that's...
I think
I actually run into problems. I'm sorry, you go first, Ava, because I forgot you've been trying before.
Oh, no, it's okay. I've been thinking about sort of like the way in which sort of like science fiction operates as metaphor and the metaphorical components that we sort of can include in these narratives. Because we can have, it's like this, like in the Sea Witch, the whole, and the Salt Sorcery series, it's like, this is literally about the suppression of people who are born females' power. And it's like the most overt way they're killed or they're, but it's all about like who has power and things like that. And it's like, well, when I was writing this, I can't remember which administration we were in, but I mean, it's been kind of a shit show for a while now. And so my rage has been steadily growing. And that might also be perimenopause, but I also think that that's probably has a lot to do with just where we are right now. And so utilizing these narratives as metaphorical, like you were saying, Gwenda, that they're not necessarily as didactic, but we can also let our readers express their anger, let them, actualize certain kinds of things that they would like for themselves, things that they would like to see in the world, actions that they would like to take, a safe space if safe spaces are not easily found now. And then we get to drape it in the, Natania, I also did fashion history. And so it's like, oh my God, please put me in an 18th century frock coat, I beg of you. And so I get to kind of wrap all of that up in this milieu, and then also create like a rip-roaring adventure. I'm sorry,
I have
Stephanie.
more to say, but I could wait till. Yeah, I do have stuff to say about this, but I don't mind if you want to do Leanna's introduction first.
Yes, Leanna, do you want to jump in and tell us how you became in love with fantasy and some about your latest books? And I think that will catch us up to where we are, which is about infusing politics into these stories. Oh no. She's truly being thwarted by ghosts. I've been there. It stinks.
My answer while Leanna gets yeah. I have actually run into issues as I was writing the series because I first came up with it in 2018. And that was when I sort of had the first concept. And I think I was actually on a podcast back then saying, oh, yeah, I think the next thing I write is going to be something called Queens of Villainy. And then it took time to percolate. And, it actually sold in 2023. And when we were in a different place politically than we are now. And it's been disconcerting to have so much of it feel so topical in a way that I didn't intend it to be. I was just sort of working from history in terms of, I'm thinking, here's this power hungry guy who's an egotist and a narcissist, and how is he going to want to prove himself, and what are the kinds of things he's going to do, and which groups is he going to leap on to demonize as part of, is an excuse to do whatever he wants, etc. And so it's turned out to be quite topical when I hadn't actually intended it that way, but it is cathartic. I think it can be really cathartic. I had someone tag me after this came out, very shortly after it, saying, "So romance isn't political, eh?" And to have a little paragraph, because the hero in this one is the high general for the horrible emperor. He's been the high general since before that emperor came. He's got reasons to believe in honor and duty, and et cetera, et cetera. And there's the bit that they posted was him promising the heroine that, don't worry, I am never going to let this happen. I am not going to commit atrocities, when he tells me to. This is not happening. I'm standing up. I'm making a choice. So it's stuff that turned out to be more topical than I would have preferred.
I feel like we haven't heard from you in a minute. CL, do you have anything to add on this one?
Oh boy, do I.
I thought you might.
Okay, so when I was writing Witchmark, I was like basically being really mad at capitalism and oligarchies, and I just decided that I was gonna cover it up with magic and old-timey buildings and everybody riding bicycles. But there was like a little throwaway line somewhere in the middle of the book where the hero, Miles, who was born to a wealthy, powerful family and faked his death in order to join military service so he could become a doctor, thinking, well, I'll just join military service. It'll be like 7 years where I go every other weekend to march in formation, and it'll be fine, and I'll be a doctor. And then, oh, there's a war. Okay, yeah. But one of the things is that because this group of people is desperately holding on to power, one of the things that they do is anybody who's born into the family has to kind of serve the society. And one of the things that he is expected to do is marry somebody that they pick for the chance of basically producing magical children. And it was an entire throwaway line. I did not even think about it, but it continued to haunt me, Hereditary Magic. So I came up with this book, The Midnight Bargain, in which I took the very familiar feeling of the romance where you're going to have the London social season and everybody's going to come down and there's lots of matchmaking and lots of parties because people are looking to get people married once again to, secure power and wealth and all this other stuff. But this time I took the lampshade right off and was like, if you're a woman and you have magic, that's great. That means that you can probably produce magical sons who can actually be mages. Oh, you're a woman, you don't get to use your magic. Sorry. So how could I not be political? Because this is the stuff that just happens all the time. And then I'm going to mention, even though I knew the end, this is my historical book. All of the other ones are secondary worlds with historical vibes. This one is actually set in Chicago. I'm fabricated very little of this. The underground lesbian speakeasy bar that used to be in a speakeasy, but then Prohibition ended and then the lesbians took it over. I made that up, but there was a lot of real cloth to make it up from. But this is accurate down to when the Red Wings scored in that particular hockey game on that day. And it is incredibly political because the main character is a lesbian and she's in danger because she's lesbian all the time. And so, yeah, I just kind of how do you not write a political book? Are you sure you're not writing a political book? Is it not political because you didn't think about it that way?
Yeah.
Right. Well, I think we talked the discourse is sort of saying that you don't, one doesn't include politics in one's content. It's well, that's a political stance to
Exactly.
assert this kind of neutrality when neutrality obviously doesn't exist. And what systems of power are you shoring up by maintaining your sort of neutrality or your silence? And and how do you pretend that this isn't a politicized world. How can you exist? Like
Yeah.
it is political. And then people take refuge in privilege and saying like, oh, I don't see this kind of thing, or doesn't affect me, or I'm above it or whatever. It's like, well, that is obviously a political stance. And so that's something to be interrogated.
Leanna,
Absolutely.
do you want to chime in real quick? I see it looks like
Hi.
you've got a yay! All right,
Yay!
and just kind of tell us about your work
Hi, friend.
and how you use history in it.
Hi, friends. Okay, so I'm going to try to do this without video because I think that's what was messing things up. I am in Kennebunk, Maine, and I just gave a talk about ghost ships on the harbor out here. So it's a beautiful day to talk about ghosts, and that's so I use ghosts in all of my historical fiction and nonfiction. So my most recent work has all been nonfiction about real haunted history. And that's done really well, and I really, really love it. But I really adore my backlist of historical fantasy, where a realistic Victorian world is in progress and ghosts upset everything and or help create this found family group of people from a diverse backgrounds who all come together to save the day with the help of friendly ghosts, or in spite of angry ghosts, one way or another. And the reason why I had Billy put up my Strangely Beautiful book cover is because while that's my debut novel, I just last week signed the option paperwork for a musical theater adaptation.
Wow.
So,
Amazing.
Strangely Beautiful, the musical, is actually going to happen. There's a draft. The show is fully drafted, and I got to listen to my hero Alexi sing the titular song "Strangely Beautiful" about my heroine, a young albino woman in Victorian London, and I cried. So it's very exciting. This has been in the works for some time, and I thought it was kind of uh, we had worked on it about 13 years ago, and I thought that it was kind of dead to the world, which is ironic on a show about ghosts. And um, the team picked it back up again with the recurrence and the resurgence in Gothic storytelling, and also all the horror musicals that are on Broadway right now. And they're like, "Hey, we really should get back to this." And I said, "Yes, I will. I will sell you the rights again." And so they paid me for them again. And so we're back to the drawing board. But sometime next year, there'll be a workshop production somewhere. I'll keep you posted. In the meantime, you can read the source material, Strangely Beautiful.
That is fabulous news. Let's see. Just a reminder to all of the people watching the panel: put your questions in the Q&A because I definitely want to leave time for questions. Let's see. Did anybody else have anything they didn't get to add about politics? Sally, you're not part of. You
I
weren't
think
part of.
all I was going to say is that I think I have two modes when it comes, like everything is political. Like the fact that any of us can read and write is political. There's like that's just the reality that, literacy is probably the most powerful political tool anyone, assigned female at birth would ever be able to access in the last, especially the last 600 plus years, in the West, especially. But I have sort of like Love in Netherford is really like a celebration of queer joy. That was very hard, though, to write as a queer person going through the last few years because it was very hard to summon it up for me. And I've desperately wanted the third book to be a happy ending, and it ended up being a mostly happy ending for the couple themselves in the story, yes, but like the full arc of the book was a little bit darker, I think, because I just had to summon a little bit of that. My Queens of Fate series, which is feminist Arthurian retelling, is all about completely disassembling the patriarchy from the limited power that women had at the time. So it was sort of like, the secret ops of the Arthurian world. And if you took away their story, everything would look kind of the same on the outside, but not realizing how much power they actually had. So that's the more overt kind of approach.
I think it can also be really fun to play when you're going back into historical fantasy. You get to decide which of the rules to keep and which of them to get rid of. And so, for me, I kept a lot. I thought it was unrealistic that it wouldn't be a misogynist society in the particular circumstances of my world. But on the other hand, it's perfectly all right that the third book turns out to be a sapphic arranged, political marriage of convenience between one of the queens and her enemy's sister. And so it's fun when you get to decide well, okay, I'm going to keep this, but I'm going to amend this because that way I get to, play all these other games.
And then we also get to kind of redress certain inequalities that we might see in our current culture and political situation, that we can be like, yeah, how about in this world, the British Navy is defeated in the Caribbean, and like, and on their agenda and the empire building and all of the all of the things that they utilized to shore up their their political agenda. So it's like we can be like, oh yeah, in this world, I have a pirate ship entirely crewed by women. And that includes trans women, non-binary people who are assigned female at birth. It's like, and so it's like I can create an almost utopic kind of environment, and that's very deeply satisfying, especially because I don't know about you, but I feel very powerless right now. And it's like, well, this is a form of activism, and I'm trying to posit it. So perhaps, it can help contribute to the discourse of resistance.
Absolutely. Great points.
Can I add
Yeah,
something in on the
please
on
do. I was gonna,
thank
yeah.
you. So, one of the ways, so everything that I write in my fiction is all historical paranormal, and I use the paranormal as a way around society's restrictions. So my characters tend to be sensitives, they tend to be psychics, and they tend to work with ghosts and the spirit world and have a very active, conversant relationship with the spirit world that will guide them and help them subvert and go around all the blockades. So a lot of my characters are strong women who are dealing with all kinds of limitations. A lot of my characters deal with education from the Quaker model. I am a Quaker, and the Quakers were really good about educating women and men equally, and they were ardent abolitionists fighting against slavery. And so within that model, there was a lot of ways to
So close to being able to get her point out. No,
I
indeed.
know.
Uh, I'm telling you, these ghosts, we know what kind of ghosts these are. Angry white men. Let's
Right?
just put it that. Let's just say it. She will beat them though. Let's switch gears a little bit, and because we haven't really talked that much about like craft, and I find that people who read, and I know we've got a lot of history nerds in the chat, according for the chat. What kind of research do you guys like to do, if you do any extra research when you're starting or working on a book? Or does it just come out of your obsessions? Because I can, obviously it happens both ways. But also, what's one of the funnest things that you've either found out or types of research that you've gotten to do? Because I bet some of you have gone to or seen some pretty cool stuff.
Well, I always like picking, I often wind up picking topics about things that I don't really have any actual knowledge about, so that I get to learn about them. And like the irony about writing a pirate romance is that I get instantly seasick. Like I have the worst inner ear. So the idea of like being aboard a ship is just like, I've been on, those massive cruise ships, and I'm like, I'm so sick. And everyone's like, I'm fine. I'm just gonna eat more lobster. I'm like, I can't do this. So I often will like utilize these sort of things, especially, and also like a certain degree of physical fearlessness, which I'm a hugely timid person. So I get to sort of enact these things that I cannot actually physically do. After I did a lot of research about piracy in the Caribbean, and after I wrote the book, but while I was waiting to write the second one, I actually got to go to London, and I went to Greenwich, where there's all this maritime history and things there. So I got to see that, and I actually got to go aboard the Cutty Sark, which is it's from a later era, but it's dry docked, and you can go on the ship and walk around. And I signed up for it, but I checked out because I also, vis-a-vis my fear of physical things, I'm terrified of heights. But my husband climbed the rigging, and I took pictures. So that was just super cool to kind of be in that physical milieu and to see all of these things about like maritime life. And that was just really interesting to me. So I love, and then, while I was researching the book, I learned that there were at least two well-known female pirates, Anne Bonny and Mary Read. So it was really fun to kind of do these deep dives into this world that I would know nothing about. And I mean, I'd watched Our Flag Means Death.
I was just about to ask, have you watched Our Flag Means
yeah.
Death?
Oh, yes. Strongly influenced by that. So I definitely included that kind of found family aboard the ship. And that was, all, and, it was really funny because as I was doing the research, I'm like, well, they actually got a lot of stuff right, actually. They were playing with it, but it was like they really were kind of delving into like, Calico Jack Rackham and all the other characters from that period. So that was really fun for me.
I think I don't know which came first, the chicken or the egg. Like research, I think is the way I make sense of the world. And when I was in academia, I was a new historicist. So it was like reading works in context of the history and the records that we have of the time and trying to like basically get people positioned in their world so that you can kind of understand where their minds are at by like looking at the big example they always use is the wife of Bath. You can actually go to Bath and look at the records and find out how many women were abused by their husbands, how many were brewers, how many, and like kind of understand, would she have been that unusual in her time? Maybe not. Actually, it turns out there's lots of women that do this kinds of things. What I do have to do, because I have ADHD, I have to ration my research because I will research ad nauseum to a point where I'm going, this is me. This is not for my readers, right? This is not, I might need to know in the back of my head that this particular China pattern was available in 1826, but my readers are not going to care. I let myself have a few, but it's like as a treat, I can have a few that are like my own historical darlings. And I have a few things like I language is one of the ones that I get very like snippy about. There's just certain language that if you're writing historical, to me, it's important that you don't speak in certain ways, but I never bother it with other people. It's just the way that I build it. So it's so ingrained in the process and sometimes I go into like deep research and I don't write that book yet. I did a whole bunch of the most fascinating book I read. It's called Mutinous Women by Joan de Jean, and it's all about the women that were sent to Louisiana from France. Who she actually went to the records and the rumors, of course, that they were called the Coffin Girls. They were all sex workers and all kinds of horrible things. And she went and did the research and found most of the women were thrown in jail by their families for reasons that were not even close to what you would assume. And many of them ended up doing sex work or ended up in places they shouldn't have been because people had turned on them. I also learned that people used to mail their children in Paris out to the country during the famine, and it didn't end well. So the things that you do learn in the documents are often harrowing and sometimes fun.
Natania, that's like I definitely want to talk to Leanna, but like that's a really interesting point. Like because the historical research, it's so rich, but it's like also we're telling these narratives, these dramatic narratives. So it's like you have to utilize a certain amount of judgment and just like sort of like siphoning out like, well, this is what germane to the characters in the plot. This is super cool, but I'm not necessarily going to utilize that. And there was so much stuff. Like I wasn't writing a Patrick O'Brian novel, so I was like, okay, I don't necessarily need to go into all the intricacies of how a ship works. This is, it's not Moby Dick. So I totally, Natania, to your point. Yeah, right.
Thank you for that. We thank you for that.
You're welcome, everybody. Oh no, I was talking and then we lost Leanna. Now I feel terrible.
She'll come back. Who else has a good research story? I know everyone on this call does.
I mean, I love. Oh, sorry. You
go ahead.
Megan and then Stephanie.
Sorry.
Mom will decide.
There we go.
Panel mom will decide.
A few books back, I wrote this guy, the hero was like the most autistic coded person I'd ever written. And I usually actually tend to write kind of autistic people, I think, because I think I am. But he's really into trains, and the heroine is his secretary. Fine reasons. And she's looking at the parts of a train and realizes that there's one called an eccentric crank, which I thought was hilarious. So, and the heroine thought it was hilarious, and she made much fun of him because he was an eccentric crank. And that was like one of the things that when I tend to do on the spot research, I'll be like, oh shoot, I just wrote a scientist. I know nothing about science or what labs look like or any of that. So I'll just go quickly like Victorian science lab. And then suddenly I'm into the weeds in terms of what they look like, who was in them, what breakthroughs were happening. And anyway, so yeah. And I think that for me, and there's Kiki. Hi, Kiki. I think that for me, a lot of my work is just kind of imbued with it feels historical, even though actually I'll say that I get dinged a lot by readers for being anachronistic because my characters are, they say that they sound contemporary. And I actually don't think so, but of course I'm the author. So I may be wrong, but it feels to me like someone else said this, everybody was the same as we are. I mean, also different in different contexts. So of course they're going to sound similar to us. I mean, we want to find commonality with our characters. So yeah, I just tangented. Sorry, guys. All right, Stephanie, I'll just shut up now.
Well, I've had a lot of fun researching different details. For secondary world fantasy, I'll usually pick just a couple of things that I want to make sure I get absolutely right in terms of, my idea of what equivalent it is in history. So for Wooing the Witch Queen, the thing that I did a ton of research on was making sure that the hero who is a fountain pen geek is using exactly the right kind of fountain pen. And it was so funny because I really deep dived on it because I'm obsessed with fountain pens. And I wrote this whole there's a sexy scene where he's showing her how to use it. So of course he has to put his arms around her. It was really fun. And I was like, I am never going to get to leave this in, the draft, but I believe in going for it with your first draft. You should just go for it, do all the most fun stuff, and it can always get cleaned up later. And I heard back from my editor, and the first thing she said is, well, we're thinking of putting the fountain pen scene on the cover. So it's really fun to do those deep dives. But the most fun thing I've done recently was actually, I can't talk about this yet because it's still in negotiation, but for my next series, for reasons, I went up to North Wales on the North Wales coast, and I just had the most incredible time. It was a reminder to me all over again of how much on the ground research helps. So when I was doing Regency era stuff, it really helped to visit, because I live in the UK, lots of Regency House museums that are set up just like in the Regency era. And here, since I'm setting my thing in a fictionalized version of the town of Gwenda, sorry, I just totally mispronounced that because I'm so tired. Regardless, I just, the 3 nights that I spent there, so 4 days, like every day I was walking around, I was seeing things that I just wouldn't have guessed. And I was like, oh, well, I know exactly how the heroine is going to react to that. And then I know what the hero is going to do. And so it just makes such a difference when you can try to find some kind of real visual and, visceral connection to what you're writing about, even in a fantasy.
I guess I need to unmute myself. We'll let Leanna answer if she can here in a second, but I did want to say to all of you guys that we've had someone ask about newsletters. So if everybody would like to drop a newsletter in the chat, a link to your newsletter, that would be great.
Via my website. So yeah, I can hear you guys. I'm on my 3rd different device, so we'll see if this one works. I don't know how much you guys heard of what I said last time before I dropped out, but my favorite thing about my research that's led up to my next book, which is a Gothic historical young adult romance, where I'm working with retellings from elements of Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier and elements of Jamaica Inn by Daphne du Maurier, and putting them into a young adult historical context. And I was inspired by my ghost ship chapter that I'm here in Maine reading from, and I loved what I was doing for this ghost ship chapter so much, and I loved the location of where it was set along Casco Bay, and just things unfolded completely from there. And it's because I walked down to this coastline and everything unfolded from there. So it was very much an in-person, passionate experience with the actual coastline, the setting itself, standing there at the edge of the ocean and everything unfolding from there. It was very exciting.
I love that. Um, let's see. We're coming up to the end of our time. These you guys have been uh, good slash bad about putting questions in. I think most of them have been answered. um, so I am curious, what is everyone working on now, and or your next thing, and if everyone can who has books coming out imminently, which was several, if you can let everyone know when to expect those and all that.
The next book in the Den of Thieves Werewolf Highwayman series, which is called Captured by the Werewolf Highwayman, will be out on September 9th, available for pre-order now. It's wide, so you can get it everywhere. And the next book in the Sea Witch Salt Sorcery series, it's called Across the Burning Sea. That will be out March 16th, 2027. And later in the year, I'm going to have, with Oliver Hieber books, I'm going to have a new series that's historical paranormal mystery adventure. So I'm very excited. It's sort of set during a protracted grand tour during the Victorian era. So I'm very excited about that.
Yay.
My next book in the Queens of Villainy series is called Melting the Ice Queen. That's the Sapphic marriage of political convenience. And it is coming out from Bramble in the US and UK in March. I just turned in copy edit, so it's definitely really happening. And my next actual thing that's coming out at all is my third and final novella in the supernatural adventures of Lady and Lord Riven series. It's called A Waltz of Sinister Import. It's taking me back to Vienna, where strange things and sinister things are happening in the ballroom, and my heroine and her vampire husband have to investigate.
Anybody jump in?
I am putting links in to Ravenfield Hall. So I told you all about this book I'm writing about the Maine coast, and I forgot to tell you the title. It's Ravenfield Hall, and we're doing a cover reveal. Got a gorgeous cover that's been illustrated by an incredible artist, and a school library journal is doing the cover reveal on September 9th, and I'm very excited. This has been such a labor of love. I've been away from fiction for a long time because I've been working on the nonfiction, and the ghost ship chapter I was working on for the nonfiction directly fed the fiction. It's been such an exciting experience to go back and forth with these things and have them mutually inspire one another. So yeah, I would love the support for Ravenfield Hall because I am nervous. This is my first full-length fiction in 6 years.
Very exciting.
So Game of Hearts just came out in the very end of June. So and I did 6 books in about 3 years. So I'm kind of like a little bit on the like, well, rapid release is great until you realize like, I've actually and I've many other reasons. But I have been pivoting a bit more to nonfiction. I have a perfume book on Sub, which so far hasn't gotten there, but who knows, as well as a couple of other projects that I'm working on, and kind of taking some time to rest my fiction brain. But of course, things keep percolating up unbidden as they do, and I have a couple of projects that I'm kind of piddling about. But I will be at Worldcon if anyone is there. I would love to say hi because my podcast, World Building for Masochists, is a finalist for the Hugo Award for Best Fan Cast. So if you like what you heard me talk about today, you can tune in every other week at that as well.
Definitely
I'll jump in.
Listen.
I've got Demons in Diplomacy comes out the 25th of this month. And then the next book is called Werewolf of London. And it will come out, who knows when, I don't know, sometime next year. Like I said, turned into the editor. And then I'm working now on a proposal for the third book in the series, which will be a vampire and a human woman, because that's the thing. Anyway, so I have to work on that, and I'm currently doing that, even though I'm very tired.
CL?
I just had a book come out. I guess like on the last day of June, and it's not historical. It's my D&D book. I honestly don't know what I'm going to do next. I have like 6 different book ideas, and all of them want to be written at the same time, and they do not understand that this is impossible. So yeah, I'm just going to do whatever I manage to do.
Well, we know it will be fabulous, and I love that you're kind of like, I'm not going to tell you anything. You can just read what's out there and wait.
The only hint I will get is this perfume, this one right here.
Yeah, we know that. Yeah, that's a great hint, though. I will jump in and be the crass moderator for a second, just because my next thing that's going to come out is a historical fantasy, the first in a historical fantasy series, which was a little overdue. It should already have been out, but hey, it's done now, and the copy it's got turned in, or will get turned in on Monday, and it's scheduled for like next fall 27 because it's the first in a series. It's called The Witching of Catherine Ward, and it will be published under a pen name because it's a little different than anything I've done before, Gemma Bowen. So it's an open pen name. So if you follow me anywhere, you'll get all the details about it. But it was kind of fun to come up with another name, and I know several people on this panel have done the same. It's kind of the taming of the shrew set during an alternate regency where witchcraft is legalized, and the hero is Ares, god of war. So it's got a little bit of
awesome.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much. Is she related to Lila Bowen? I know, I thought the same thing, and actually my friend Alex Harrow put a Gemma Bowen in the a reference to Gemma Bowen in like the back matter of Starling House. So I was like, I have to finish this book now. Like I can't leave Alex hanging out there with like an in joke that's never materializes. But yes, thank you everybody, especially Leanna for trying multiple devices, and everybody for being so wonderful as always.
Thank you, Gwenda, and thank you, Billy, and Bookstore Romance Day. Thank you, and thank you to all the attendees for coming.
This is Billy again. I wanted to just pop in and say thank you to everyone. Thank you to all of our authors. Thank you to Leanna for trying so hard and finally being able to join us on audio. Thank you to Gwenda for moderating. Thank you again to all of our sponsors who help keep these virtual events free for people to attend. We have 2 more events tomorrow, so make sure you register for those if you haven't already. You will get an email with a link to this recording, plus all of the various links and recommendations that have shown up in the conversation in the chat, as much as I can keep track of them. And thank you all. Go forth and hit up a bookstore here at the end of the day if you haven't done so already. Have a great weekend. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks,
everybody.
Billy.
Thanks for bearing